Welcome to the Open Educational Resources Seminar. My name is Stephanie Forbes. I'm Digital Experience Librarian at UNE. So what we're going to cover today is a quick look at Open Educational Practices, or OEP, the cost of textbooks, Open Educational Resources, also known as OER, and how to find OER. So Open Educational Practices is like an umbrella that sits over the top of OER. A researcher in the University of Ireland by the name of Cronin described it as the creation, use and reuse of open educational resources, as well as open pedagogies and open sharing of teaching practices. The basic process of this should not come as any surprise to teachers and educators, because developing, sharing resources, recycling and reinventing resources, and sharing knowledge on effective teaching practices is what we as educators do. Open access in research and publishing is a well-developed concept. However, there is an opportunity now to raise the profile, promote and recognize the expertise in teaching and learning in higher education through open educational practices. OEP is becoming more prominent around the world, especially in places like Canada, USA, New Zealand and UK, and by giving it a name, it provides some legitimacy to the process, a framework that has the potential to have enormous impact on students and on curriculum design. Open educational practices supports learner-driven education through OER resources, their reuse and recreation. OER embodies very particular focus on resource creation and sharing, whereas OEP can initially look at the broader opportunities, utilizing available shareable online resources to support teaching. OEP practitioners look at moving beyond the textbook. This is one specific area where an OEP approach can benefit students through identifying OER or resource alternatives to a costly prescribed textbook. One of the current problems, which could be addressed by OEP and OER, is the cost to students. Textbooks cost a lot of money, and the University Librarian at ANU back in 2016 wrote an article in The Conversation on how the cost of textbooks has increased globally well above inflation rates, making it harder than ever for students to afford to study. I did some research back in 2019 and had a look at the student discontinuation feedback data. I found hundreds of students had left due to high cost or lack of access to textbooks. On screen are some actual quotes from some of the students as to why they had to leave. Textbooks are averaging $120 a pop here at UNE. Back in 2019, trimester 1 between law and psychology, some of the texts were as high as $300, and I've heard of higher in other places. Some of the reasons that students discontinued studies, that they found it hard to actually get hold of the textbooks in the first place. Sometimes the bookshop didn't actually have any in stock. Publishers and suppliers were out of print. There was no access to the textbook in the country in which the student was residing, and then finally the students couldn't afford it. So access to the textbooks in time for the start of trimester was one of the bigger issues for students in continuing their study. So why are textbooks so expensive? The majority of textbooks are published by a small number of companies. The decision made to set a textbook can have a huge impact on the student decision-making process when it comes to continuing study. Costs of resources have an impact on student decisions and academic success. However, there are some options available to help reduce the impact. EDUCAUSE describes OER broadly and incorporates all aspects of educational materials in any medium that has been made publicly available or under an open license. It includes the ability to access, use, adapt and redistribute, and then can include all kinds of materials such as textbooks, curricula, syllabi, lecture notes, video, audio, simulations and assessments, and any other content used in education. When we're talking about OER, we're talking about more than just free to access. We're lucky that in this day and age there is a huge wealth of information and resources available online, freely available to use. However, when we're talking specifically about open educational resources, we're talking about the ability to remix, revise, reuse, retain, and redistribute those materials at no cost. So it's not just free to access. To qualify as OER, they have to meet additional criteria to enable others to make use of the resources as they need to. 5 things to know about OER is that the term is still broad and still under discussion. The most important aspect of OER is that resources are given an open license that allows duplication and some level of editing and repurposing of the material. For others, the most important factors center on the educational intent in the resource. OER comes in all shapes and sizes. Hypothetically, just about anything can be used as a resource in the service of education, which means that if licensing is not taken into account, it is easy to conflate the notion of OER with anything I can get from the web and use in my teaching. Licensing is important. The range and nature of digital resources online have fundamentally changed the nature of academic practice. Given this, the need for clear licensing is becoming more important and is the most straightforward indication to those wanting to reuse, repurpose resources that they have the right to do so. The difference between use and reuse. From an individual's perspective, a digital resource might only be used by them once, whereas the resource itself may have been used many times before by others. Sharing and reuse are not new. Many of the concepts discussed in the report by the University of Oxford back in 2011 hold true for paper-based resources and pre-OER electronic resources. What is new is the level of choice and availability and the range of formats in existence. So where do we find some of these OER? This is where the University Library can help you. We have a couple of guides which will help you get started in looking for quality OER. One is known as the Open Educational Resource Library Guide and the other one is Open Access Library Guide. Both are available through the guides link on the library homepage. And on these guides, particularly in the OER guide, you have access to the 2 major search engines which cover hundreds of different resource indexes around the world, providing you with all kinds of teaching materials that you can use. These are known as MUM and Oasis. There's also links to the Open Textbook Initiative, so if you would like to adopt a different resource, a free resource perhaps, as an alternative to a current textbook, you can use the ISBN of your current textbook and put it into the Open Textbook Initiative search, and it will find other resources which might be suitable that could match. OpenStax is a company which is pulling together a number of high quality open textbooks which you can use at any time. And Swinburne Commons has access to a range of material including a lot of video tutorials, particularly in the areas of maths, science, statistics and physics, which they have put together, hundreds of these videos which they've put together in collaboration with a number of universities around the world. On these guides, there is also access to some of the university publishing sites around Australia. So if you are concerned about the quality of some of this material, there are some prominent universities including ANU, which has its own in-house publishing area, and they currently have up to 645 titles, books, which you have access to. If you're not sure where to go, your subject librarian will be able to help you with this. On screen are the names of the subject librarians and the subject areas that they assist with, and you can always call us on 67732458. If you would like to create your own course resource list, there is the library reading list platform, which allows you to collate a number of resources, including chapters, videos, articles, and any other teaching materials you can think of. Have it put together in one spot, collated and copyright checked, and made available through your course. And the reading list is looked after by Dr. Sanaz Alian, who will be able to help you with that. If you'd like to find out more about how other people are using OER, on screen is a couple of QR codes linked to videos, testimonials of academics using OER in their education, and how to find quality OER.